Hi guys, Nomis here, and welcome to the first episode of this Subway Builder series. So if you don't know what Subway Builder is, it's a game where you build subways or rail networks in general in real cities around the world. And it's using real data on demand for residents and workers, and it's taking the maps from OpenStreetMaps. So what you can see here is we are in New York looking down towards Manhattan. So in this series I'll be building a subway in New York City and some of the metro area as well. There is some of areas outside New York City as well, which we can play with. So there's some plans for this series. Usually in Subway Builder you would build using these demand stats. You can see here this is residents and workers, and it's basically showing density of workplaces and residents. And I'm playing a normal mode, so I tried a little bit on New York before, but I found it's quite easy because of the densities to make profit. So I thought something more interesting for a long-term project would be to first try to build as close as I can within the limitations of the game, to rebuild the New York City subway as it is today, 1-to-1, or as close as I can get it, and then work on improving it, doing some extensions which have already been planned, and some new lines or extensions which have been proposed by others, if it's advocate groups or YouTubers. Like you have Queenslink, for example, and then you have planned projects already, for example 2nd Avenue extension and the IBX, and then later on we can also try to use some commuter rail lines. We, like, if you zoom out, they don't have a lot of on Long Island, but we get a fair bit, and you also get some of New Jersey and a little bit to the north. So you can definitely try to later on build some parts of Long Island Railroad, some part of Metro North, and also some New Jersey Transit. And we'll definitely do the Path Subway, because that is right across the river. It's probably going to be part of like the initial 1-to-1 build. So in building this, I have a few resources that I'm using. So I'm just gonna show that on screen. If we get up the browser here. So first of all, we have the current New York City subway map, which you can see here. This is not really that useful for the actual building of it, but later on when I set up the lines, it's going to be pretty useful, especially because you have so much interlining and the local and express lines. And the next one is just Google Maps. This satellite view is really great, just for to have a geographical view of the system, and when you have the transit layer here, you can pretty much see the paths that it's taking. And you see here on South Ferry, and if you go up here, you can see there's another station. You can see like the general location of it, and you see which line goes there, and you can see where it merges. But one drawback of this when building is that we don't really see all the different details of how the tracks merge and all the junctions. So for that, I found a site which is called NYC Subway.org, and it's a great resource, especially if you're a rail nerd like me. You basically have track maps of the entire system of New York. You can see here we have most of Manhattan and the Bronx, just without the lower Manhattan. And if we zoom in, we can just see all the tracks. Like you see here, it's a quad track section, and I think the dotted lines are where it passes over under the different tracks, and you can really see pretty detailed how the lines interact and how they interline and all the switches. And if we go into lower Manhattan, you can see here how, for example, the one line goes up here and then it's merging with the 2 and 3. So while we're talking about this, in the first episode now, the plan is to build out the one train from start to end. So I'm going to start here in South Ferry. And then, because of how the system works, I'm also going to be building a fair bit of the 2 and 3 train, but I'm not going to set up lines for that now, just whichever part of the subway or the lines that it shares with the one train I'll be building up. And also, while I'm building it, just for future, to make it easier for the future, I'm also going to be building like where it merges off all the junctions. So, and you see here also the different yards. I'm not going to be building that. So, for example, here you have like a third track in the middle, which I think connects to the yards. I think in the context of the game, it doesn't make sense to build that. So I'm just going to omit that, just for simplicity. So, to get started, I'm just going to have this browser in like a smaller screen here up in the corner. Just want to see if you can get it here. Just so you can see kind of how I'm using it. So you can see already in the track map that it's starting as a terminus station here with 2 tracks. So that's what I would do as well. And as far as I know, most of Manhattan, it's cut and cover. So it starts being cut and cover at -4. So I'm just gonna do that for here. If we zoom into Google Earth, I'm trying to find approximately where it is. So you can see it right by Whitehall Street. I think this here, roughly, is where the station sits. And then it continues up State Street, as far as you can see. So what I'm doing here is I'm just building it, try to angle it towards it. And you see if we cross over a building like here, cut and cover is not really deep, so you have to demolish building. So I'm trying to avoid that. So if we go there, then we'll able to. And then we're gonna go and see if we can find the next station, which is up at Rector Street. And then follow up Greenwich, where it was, and then we see roughly where Greenwich Street intersects with Rector Street. And then we want to build a station there. And they kind of automatically make a station name in the game, but I'm gonna rename them as I go. Of course, this one actually gave the right name, so that's actually great news. And then we go up further from Rector Street. We have World Trade Center, Cortlandt, which is right by this Memorial Museum and the new World Trade Center. And the great thing about when you're building like this is you can kind of see all the landmarks and where we're building in the city, which is kind of difficult if you're just building in the game without watching the map. So I'm gonna get that roughly there. You see it's really close stations, but that's just how it is in New York. And then we go over to, I think I need to push it back maybe a little bit because we're supposed to go into Broadway here. And then the next station is actually, if we see on this track map here, Chambers Street, that is actually going to be a quad track. So I need to switch over to the quad track station there. And that is where Broadway and Chambers Street intersects. and there it actually got the right name. So now what we need to do is see how the junction works. So because the one train is gonna be a local, it means that needs to connect to the outer tracks. So what I need to do then is kind of just go here, single tracks, go up here, and then we can connect into the outer tracks. So if you hold in shift, you actually make the end straight. This is something that was added later on. And then when you use single ones, you actually need to be careful, because the direction that you're drawing it in is going to be the direction the tracks are in. And then, just so we can make the junction, I want to place the station, which is at Park Place. Here, Park Place and Church Street. And that is actually, we need to cross under here. So then I want to build this station, which is double track, just a little bit lower down. Actually let's do -8. Because then it should be easier to cross under. That doesn't work. Let's see actually where. I think actually I might need to push up this station here, Chambers Street, a little bit more, just so we have some more room to do the merge. And then we need to go up to -4 again. So this is kind of the fun challenges you have when you're rebuilding the system. Then you need to try and fail until you work something out. And a lot of this interlining can get kind of complex, for sure. So now let's see if we can get this in. Because we're cutting cover, we can't go on the buildings and we're demolishing. And then we need to go a bit further back. It's kind of sharp curves here. Then let's see if we can actually get this in. So there we have connected up, and that means up until, if you look at the track map, then we need, I think, let's just see how far we need to go with the quad track. I think that is up all the way until so 96th Street is going to be the last quad track station. We can see here on the track map. So then what I'll do is just continue to follow up here on -4 with the quad track station. And then once I set up the lines, the 2 and 3 trains which will go express, I'm just gonna not have the line on that, but that is something we can do. Look at in the next episode when I'll start building the 2 train-ish. That is at least my plan. So now while I go up to 96th Street, I'm just gonna speed it up a little bit, so you don't have me talking all the way, and turn up some music. And then when we get to 96th Street, we can then look at how we're gonna do the merge. And then I also just look at Google Maps while building this to look at the general path of of the line on this and the stations, kind of which streets to sit on. So I'll be right back, and then we can continue building out. Okay, so here we actually I'm just been looking at the cost all the time, because as you see we always start out with 3 billion and we actually made it all the way until 96th Street, and fortunately we have to pay for demolishing this structure here, which actually I've been here in real life. I'm pretty sure that this is the entrance building to the station, but because of how it's labeled in OpenStreetMaps, I don't think it's labeled as Subway entrance. Then you actually have to demolish it, because I think the game removes anything that's labeled as subway infrastructure. I'm not actually sure exactly how it works, but there's something like that. And we are then at 2 billion. We can see that the next station is 103rd Street. But if we look at the this track map here, we can see that 103 Street actually we're back to a double track station. So we can see it's kind of between 103 and 104 Street. So you go back to parallel and just trying to angle it a little bit just to make it easier. And then we need to actually go back to single track because we're gonna connect the outer tracks to the station here. And there, and then we can see where there's the, and then we can see in the track map where's the junction of the 2 and 3 train. Looks like they have their station at the, no they don't, 103 Street, so roughly where this station is. Where they merge and kind of turn into Central Park, as we can see here. I'm just gonna get the turn so it merge, so or the junction in, so that we can get it down 104th Street. So I need to cross under. I need to get at least 4 meter clearance. So then I do parallel and I try to get these inner tracks down to -8. You can see here it's red because it's too steep, so about here is fine. I'm not sure if this is exactly how it is in the real one, but we can take some liberation. We can take some freedom. Then it looks like get up here, and it's pretty tight turn. Might need to go back a little bit further, but it seems like it's roughly there that they cross under. See if we can get this in without demolishing anything. No. Oh, there. The map is freaking out a little bit. Let's just undo that. Wonder if we can. Need some very fine movements here. I think there. Actually, I made a mistake. I was supposed to be on 104th Street. So we actually might have a little bit more room than we thought. Sometimes you just want to hug the building to get the curve that you want. Then you can just send it down here and just leave it there for the future. And now we can see we have a nice and smooth like separation of it. And now the cost is at 2.12 billion. So I think we can do a little bit more. We can do this station at 110th Street. Then we go up to -4 again. Build a station here, which is a double track station again. So we always want to make sure that we have enough money. We don't want to spend all of the 3 billion. We want to have some left to buy the trains as well. So I think if we get up to like 2.5, that should be fine. So we can go up here to 116th Street, which is actually what you see here is Columbia University, which should be a pretty pretty good place to have a station now in this initial build out. So I don't think we're gonna get the whole one train on this first 3 billion, but we're getting close there, and I'll get to it in this episode. Just want to get as much as we can. And then we go into 125 Street. So this station is very interesting in real life. If you look at the Google Maps, it's maybe a bit small, but here it actually goes very suddenly into an elevator station. That is because what you see here on 125 Street, it's a valley, so the train kind of dips sharply down and then up again. And while the tracks, they kind of stay pretty level, but because they stay level and the street dips down, then they just like shoot out from underground into an elevator station and back in. But because the game doesn't really have the ground terrain like that, it's not really possible to do it. I did try to get up from underground and do an elevator station there when I did like a test run, but it wasn't really possible. So just to keep it simple, I'm just gonna have a boring old cut and cover station here, because that is what's possible. But I think it's interesting to have a look at this more complex and interesting parts of the system while we go past them in Google Maps and recreate them here in game. And here you can kind of see the limitations of game, but I think it's not that important that we recreate those things, but just want to get the general layout. And here we have 137th Street, City College. Just want to make sure that we get the correct names in. If you saw while I was building up, I just went by one and just renaming the stations, but a lot of times they're just named by the street they're crossing, so a lot of time the game will automatically have the right name. I just always make sure to go in and rename it if I need to. And now we're at 2.39, so I think we're just gonna do one more station, which is 145th Street. So while if you're building Manhattan, what I try to do is to kind of center it. I try to see like this crusty tree. If I start like a little below that and drag it up, then we're gonna choose station. So if I want to center it at 145th Street, I try to start a little bit below the street before, which is 144. Then I just drag it, and then it's pretty much centered, and it's also got the correct name. So there's a little trick if you want to do something similar. And there we have 2.46, and then we need to add crossovers. That is always important. And there down at South Ferry, which is, I don't think I mentioned this before, but this is where the Staten Island Ferry goes. And I'm not sure how I'm gonna kind of replicate that in the game, because in real life the subway goes here and then there's a ferry going over to Staten Island, and then they have their own little railway. But that's a discussion for another day once we get there. And then we're at 2.48, which is a good, you can see we have actually built a fair bit of Manhattan with the one train, and this section here, which is contract, is actually part of the 2 and 3 train. So when we continue to build a 2 and 3 train, we have actually built a fair bit of it already. So now this is all blueprint, so I just click build blueprint, and then we can see it getting built. A bit faster than in real life, but I mean, it's a game after all. Then I go over to routes, create a new route. Then it's gonna be the one train, and that is heavy metro. You're gonna make sure, because now the game has heavy metro, light metro, and commuter rail. And I think for this I want to have the round. So we have like different symbols, but I'm gonna keep the round one for all of them, and then it's of course has to be the red because 1, 2, and 3 train has the red color. And the shape is kind of nice because you see this. I think this is what they use for express services on the New York City Subway. So this can definitely come in handy later on. But then we can create the route. And then what I usually do is I just click the end stations. So we see here, that one there, and then we go all the way up to 145th Street. And I try to make it stop so it can just go straight forward. So it kind of does the switch on the way into the station. And there, and now you see it kind of fills the whole thing. And then we just need to fill in all of the station, and it does automatic order. And when it's kind of a straight line like this, it's kind of easy. You just have to click them, and then the automatic ordering does a pretty good job at seeing which order they go in. But later on, one of the other lines, you can I noticed in test run that it kind of got confused and it got all messed up. So in some lines I actually need to do a manual ordering, but for at least for the one train I can do it like this. And now I need to go on the outer tracks because this is a local service for this section here with 4 tracks. And then we go quickly down to the South Ferry. And there we have reached it. So now we have the whole line set up with stops, and then we can click confirm changes. And then we need to go to trains. So we can have a choice here. We can have 5-car trains or 10-car trains. But if we're going for realism, most of the lines in New York would have 10-car trains, with some exceptions. But for most of this, it's gonna be the 10-car trains. They might not fill up fully for now, but for this series, the main goal is kind of to recreate it as much as I can, and not to kind of go for maximum profit or anything like that. The main goal is just to have as high ridership as possible in the long run. So it's just going to be like a slow burn in building it. And then, yeah, that's how I'm going to do it. And I was doing some research on frequency, but it's kind of hard to find a clear number. So I'm just going to do what feels right here. I think we can go, let's say 8 minutes on the high demand, and let's do 12, because in New York actually medium demand sees pretty good ridership as far as I know, and because it is a 24/7 system, we can have, I wanted to go 18, but 20, but for now we can go 18. That's good enough. And then we can finally hit play, and then we can see the system come alive and just see passenger riding it, and then we can start save money for doing the rest of the one train. Okay, so now I will just let the line run for a full 24 hours. Now we can look at some numbers here. So the route ridership is under 36,000, which is decent. We just built, it's just like one line, and it's not to the full extent yet. So it's gonna get better. I think this system is kind of gonna really take off once once the whole thing is built out with all the interlining and the transfers and the reach. And if we look at finances, we can look at the revenue. So we're making 147 million revenue and 45 million expenses. So that means on the first day we made a little over 100 million in profit, which is like if you're gonna build on New York like just like a regular game, it's not the best, but I think for this purpose it's pretty good. I wouldn't have to wait that long to do more extensions. I do have the fair price at $3, which is default, but it's actually quite close. I think it's basically what the real New York subway system has, so I'm just gonna keep it at that for realism, because I'm trying to emulate the real system. And already we can see here we have some bonds we can take, and already we can take the 500 million bond because we have over 100 million revenue a day. So I'm just gonna take that actually, and then we have 500 million more, and then we're already up back to $1 billion. We were at 400 million I think after we built it out and bought some trains. So now that we have $1 billion, what I want to do is just continue building out the system. And if we look at the track maps, it's quite simple here now. It's kind of just like a separate line, 2 tracks all the way to the end of Manhattan, and then a little bit into the Bronx and stopping at 1 Cortlandt Park, 242 Street. So I'm just gonna speed it up again while building out, and I am gonna have the game running just because then people are riding the subway system and I can accumulate money while I'm building the blueprint, and hopefully I will have enough money to build the rest once I've gotten the blueprints done. So I'll just speed it up a bit and turn off some music, and then we'll be back once I've reached the end stop. So now after we come from 191 Street, it gets a bit interesting, because here we for the first time go from underground and up to an elevated station. It seems like here by Fort George Hill is where it goes up to underground, and there's an elevated station right here at this intersection with Nagel Avenue, Dickman Street, and the station called Dickman Street. Then we're gonna draw this elevator station here. Just get it a bit straighter. So this was a real challenge when I did like a test run. So it's gonna be interesting to see how we get done here. You see we don't have a ton of space to get from underground, so need to go from -4 to +5 here. So let's see if we gotta get that curve a bit less there. So here now we can start going up. So we kind of need to snake around here. This is the shortest. We're at 1 here. Let's see, can we go up to 3? Just want to see what the shortest is. So the maximum grade we can do is 4% to there. Then we want to go up to 5. We can't go on the road yet because then it's crossing. Let's see, there I think with 5, and can we? There we can turn into the station. And then we have another elevator up here at 207th Street. And we're gonna go up 10th Avenue, I believe it is. So we're just gonna cross it here, then continue elevated just up here. This is kind of what is interesting with building. One of the many interesting things about building the New York Subway is that you have a lot of, obviously in Manhattan it's all underground, but then as you get further out it kind of goes from underground up to above ground and then into elevated, a lot of times above the road like we have here, which you've probably seen a bunch of times. This needs to be 206th Street, so that provides some interesting challenges in the game, on top of all of the different junctions. So right here we have a yard actually, but we're not going to build that because of course there is no yards in the game. But we're going to go here to 215th Street. So now the rest of this line is just going to keep elevated. And then we cross into, now we're actually getting to into the Bronx when we're crossing the river here. I'm not sure which river this is. Is that, I guess it's the East River maybe. I'm not sure, I'm not an expert here. And there is actually a station right across here. It's kind of almost part of the bridge. That is 225th Street Marble. So what I'll do when in Google or Google Maps here, I'll just click on the station and I kind of copy it so I can go into the game and just simply paste it. Just makes it easier. And then we can just continue here, just crossing the river into the Bronx, as it's called. Okay, so now we actually need to be more than 8 meters above, so it means we need to delete this and we're gonna build that at 8 meters above. So let's see here. Then we need to shave this back, and we also need to get the tracks up to 8 meters, and I think no, we need to shave that back a bit more. Okay, made a mistake there. I actually built this at -4. We just need to delete that. So let's see, it's supposed to be at 5. I don't know why that happened. Okay, so this one is fine. It's a little oopsie there, but it's quick to fix. And now we need to get the track up to 8 meters. No wonder it was too steep. And there, connect in. And we're actually almost at the end here. We got 231st Street up here. We need to have station selected, and there. Then it gives us the correct name. And then 238th Street, which is up here by this intersection here. If we go a little bit further, then we get up to what is called One Cortlandt and 242nd Street. just connect in the tracks here. So we got a full network, and we need to get a crossover. And while I was looking at the Google Maps for the route, I noticed something really funny. We can actually get the full browser. If you see here, there's a bar right next to the station here, which is called the last stop, which is of course a pun because this is the last stop on the one train. Just thought that was a little bit funny, little fun fact, which I found kind of hilarious. I don't know. I think it's nice wordplay. And then I just want to copy the name here. This means actually we built the entire route of the one train, which you can see all the way from South Ferry, the rest of Manhattan, and then a little bit into the Bronx. That's gonna cost us, this extension, 687. That is about half one, so that is definitely possible. Did we do a crossover? We did not, so we need to do that there. And then we can build it. That is pretty exciting. And then we need to go in here and edit route. Just click there, and then what I do then is just click to add this as the last stop. And then we can just simply click on all of these, and it does the ordering of the stops automatically. Or at least it should do it automatically. Yeah, seems to be working alright. And there we have, you can confirm changes. So now it's 53 minutes end to end, which is a decent line, I think. And there we have the full one train as it is today in the New York City Subway. I think that is, it's impossible. I think that was quite a fun challenge, and there's definitely going to be more challenges as we go on. I think for the next episode, I'm gonna try to extend out from here and do kind of the northern section of the 2 and 3 train. I think the 3 train just ends somewhere here in Manhattan, while the 2 train kind of actually continues quite a bit into the Bronx. So I think that will be the aim for the second episode. And then for episode 3, I'm probably gonna do the extension into Brooklyn here, and then I can get the final reach of the 2 and 3 train. So the focus is gonna be on all of the red lines first, and then probably the green lines, and then I'll see where I'll go from there. And just now to end off, I'm gonna just have a view of the city so far with the one train running. So you can kind of see here the trains running along it, and this like red bubbles is people going to and from the stations. And we are at 152, and what is the demand? So currently 1.7% of New York is commuting by subway, which is not a lot, but we only built one of, I think it's like 28 lines on the subway. And then of course you have different other lines. You have the commuter rail with the Long Island Railroad, the Metro North, and you have New Jersey Transit, which also goes into New York, and the path, which is basically a subway which goes into New Jersey. So there's definitely going to be a lot of fun we can have with this. So I'm just going to leave you with this view here, and until next episode I'm just going to let it run for some days so we have some money to get started building. So if you watch it to the end, thank you so much for staying, and like, comment and subscribe on this video would definitely help me a lot in growing the channel, and I would love to hear what you think about this episode and the format. I'm kind of just experimenting with how I'm going to do this Subway Builder videos, so let me know if there's anything you would like me to do different, or if you like this format. So have a great rest of the day, and see you in the next one.